Hey, Amanda.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, have you seen the Reginald VelJohnson movie where he plays a cop?
Isn't that every Reginald VelJohnson movie?
It is. I'm talking about the one that happens to be Christmas themed.
Clearly one of the best Christmas movies ever. We must be doing Die Hard.
We are, and that's today.
And Can We Talk About?
Yeah, I'm still here. Unless you want to open the front door for me.
I'm afraid not. But you have me at a loss. You know my name, but who are you? Just another American who saw too many movies as a child. Another orphan of a bankrupt culture who thinks he's John Wayne, Rambo, Marshall Dillon.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts.
Do you really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, Amanda.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It's been so long. So we've missed you all, but full disclosure, this was 100% my fault.
Yeah.
I decided this year hadn't been enough of a menagerie of fuckery that I decided what would be fun to cap the year off by getting RSV and then simultaneously pneumonia. And then right after that, laryngitis for 2 weeks with zero voice. Not like a squeaky voice, but like not even sound came out.
You got like a full house of whatever viruses or sicknesses
I did
were
them
out
all.
in the world. Yeah.
I said it was like go big or go home, baby. And I went all the way home. I went back to the motherland.
You're like Pokemon, but with whatever seasonal sicknesses are out in the world.
Yeah, I really collected them all. But simultaneously to me being sick, it felt like the rest of the world was too. I mean, like I got my whole family sick, Tom. Put my mom in the hospital with this.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
For the record,
didn't. The RSV
did not know that I had RSV.
Yeah.
Just had like a little scratch in my throat. Also took it to the Gotham West studios because why not?
But everyone survived. Everyone.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Well, your wife did get sick. I don't know if it was from me or not, but she did. I did get her sick.
She got like a little sick, but like, common cold-esque kind of thing. So it was, I mean, you got like whatever you had, you were patient zero or met patient zero or something. Yeah.
And I took my whole family out. I'm talking nieces, nephews, sisters, brother-in-law, fiance, mom, stepfather. I took them all out.
Yeah.
I went big. And again, didn't know I had it. I just had a little tiny tickle in my throat.
Yeah. But that all brings us to now, which is like, which is what made this difficult because this is like our favorite time of year because there's lots of holiday movies to talk about.
Which are our favorites.
Love doing that during December. Which brings us to, you want to say the words to kick off the episode?
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. We are doing the Christmas classic, Fight Me On It, Bruce Willis, Die Hard.
Fight Me On, does he not
said
believe
it is not, yes, he said this is not a Christmas movie.
Well, he's not of mind right now. So I don't know when he said this.
Long time ago, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I've always thought of it as a Christmas movie. And
yeah,
I mean, we probably should just talk about this right from the get-go.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a Christmas movie?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It takes place. Like, here's the thing. Okay. If it wasn't a Christmas movie, right? It could have taken place any other time of the year, right? And the movie would have been,
Sure.
So why did they make it Christmas Eve? It's because that's the whole, and there's an undertone to the whole thing with family and get together, like all this other stuff that
he's getting his wife back at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Seeing his kids at Christmas time.
Right. So there's a theme, there's an underlining theme of Christmas and family and all that stuff that goes with it. So I am a diehard, I believe Christmas is a diehard fan.
Okay. I like that. And as am I. Also, I do just want to point out, like, this could have happened another night of the year, but it would have, like, think of all of the plot surrounding it. So just to kick off, Die Hard, 1988, starring Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
Alan Rickman's first film debut as Hans Gruber.
Was it really? I didn't realize it was his film debut.
So if they had not done this on Christmas Eve, number one, why is everybody in the office after hours? Why is the entire company there after hours? what's the way to do that?
Right.
A Christmas movie, right?
Yeah.
And like, why would he suddenly decide that he's going to leave his hard life as John McClaine, the NYPD detective, to come to LA to see his wife? You add Christmas in there, he's carrying the teddy bear. All of these things, I don't think the plot would have been as good if it wasn't Christmas Eve. But they didn't release it at Christmas time. So I wonder if that is like,
maybe
it was released in July.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that can throw it off a little bit. And that's also weird to have a movie baked around Christmas that, and there's the I don't want to say symbolism of it, but like at the end of the movie, spoiler alert, at the end of the movie when like paper and everything is raining down, it looks like snow, like it's snowing in LA.
Yeah.
Kind of goes to like the visual of it all. But before we get into that, do you know all the people that almost played John McClane? Because I think
I sure do.
Yeah. Like
I do.
There's a big list, by the way.
There's a massive list, but also something that I almost gave away to Tom before we hit record is this is all based on a book. So Roderick Thorpe's 1979 crime novel, Nothing Lasts Forever, is a sequel to the detective, which he had made into a movie, John McClane this John McClane version was played by Frank Sinatra.
Frank Sinatra.
So Frank Sinatra had first rights to play John McClane. They had to offer it to him. He was 70.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
He was 70. But it's inspired by The Towering Inferno.
Yeah.
Which
that makes sense.
Yeah. He was watching the movie when he was thinking about writing this film, and he had a dream about a guy being chased through a skyscraper by a group of men with guns.
Yeah.
So that's how it became. But could you imagine Frank Sinatra at 70 playing John McClane? It would have been a very slow chase.
It would have been.
He would have had a glass of Jack Daniels just clinking down the hallway with a cigar hanging out of his mouth, like,
who are these guys?
And never brings the gun above hip height. You know what I mean? Like he just could never lift it. So I don't know if that would have worked. But also Clint Eastwood owned the movie rights to the book.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So he was playing around to Nothing Lasts Forever, the book. So he's playing around to star in it in the early 80s and then decide to sell the movie rights. And that's how it became. But you want to go down the list of people? Because it's impressive.
Oh, man. It is. And it's funny because some of them, like at the time, I can maybe see, like if what's his name didn't exist, I can see them, I can see Bruce Willis being replaced by a few of these people, but others I can't. So you have, Arnold Schwarzenegger was one of the big ones, I believe.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is he's just too beefy at that point.
Also, his accent, he would have sounded like he was part of the German side. It wouldn't have worked out. That's good.
Ho, ho, ho. Now I have a machine gun.
And then Hans Gruber's like, no, I have the machine gun.
No, I have the machine gun. Al Pacino was in there. Who, I mean, the good news for them, he would have been able to fit into the vent for that scene,
Facts.
Yeah.
Very, very true.
He's a very short man. James Caan. Paul Newman, which again, even Paul Newman was also old at that point too. There's a lot of older guys in here. They need some young blood. Not Arnold Schwarzenegger young blood. Look, Anyway, new blood. Paul Newman, Richard Dean Anderson, who you might remember from
MacGyver.
Stargate. Oh, he was
MacGyver.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know why I always forget he was MacGyver. But yeah, MacGyver could have been, but that would have been too on the nose, like MacGyver running around a skyscraper. That might have been an actual
in an air vent. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know this. We already know this.
I'm gonna take this TV screen and use it as and strap it to the chair and make it. I don't know. Don Johnson, who was too cool.
My father, Amanda Johnson's father, Don Johnson.
I just caught that. Mel Gibson, Nick Nolte, Burt Reynolds, Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford, I could have seen it.
I could have seen Harrison Ford.
Yeah, he's played enough like everyday guy, not a superhero hero in a bunch of things, and I can kind of see that. I don't know if I mentioned this already. Clint Eastwood, I think you might have said that. Yeah, because he owned the rights. Richard Gere, even young Richard Gere, because this is like 4 years before Pretty Woman.
Yeah, this is 88. So, he probably could have done it, but it would have been a different energy. Like some of these guys could have done it. Would have been a very different movie. It wouldn't have been gritty. Bruce Willis was so gritty.
It always reminds me of, have you ever seen the test footage from Back to the Future?
No.
Eric Stoltz was Marty, and they filmed like almost half the movie.
Oh, duh, Marty.
And then we're like, oh yeah, whoops. And the movie had a whole different energy because it looked like he was more like Marty is Marty, and Michael J. Fox plays him in a certain way where it's like whimsical and like he has to get out of the situation, but like it's not scary. It's like a
lovable
roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
Eric Stoltz is like, I'm living inside of a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, and from that test footage. So I think to that point, like there's a lot of these actors that could have played, like Richard Gere playing John McClaine would have been a very different movie. And also, but Richard Gere never played any action movies. Now that I think of it, right? Like,
I don't know. I think he played more psychological thrillers, like the bad guy in psychological thrillers. But they also have on here like Robert De Niro, Charles Bronson, who I'm a divorced dad kid, so I love action movies because every weekend at my father's house was spent watching these movies, and I love Death Wish. Charles Bronson movies, sign me up. But missing from this list are other like action movie actors that like maybe could have done it, like Jean-Claude Van Damme. I could have seen him doing this.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have had the humor that Bruce Willis brought to it. Like there's, like little humor. But they also, I think, because Bruce Willis was not well known, like at all. He was a comedic actor before this. He'd never done action.
Yeah.
I think added to it.
Yes.
But like also this made Bruce Willis like the action guy.
Yeah, because he was playing in Moonlighting on TV, and he did Blind Date the year prior. Again, all comedies basically, and then he pulled into this. Which, by the way, I mean that's the other thing too that they point out is at the time in the 80s, a TV star and a movie star were two very different things.
And and he was only able to do this because Sybil Shepherd, who was on Moonlighting with him, got pregnant. So the whole cast had 11 months off because they couldn't continue the show with her being pregnant. And then he was able to say yes to this. But one of my favorite, like almost casting is, did you know that Sam Neill almost played Hans Gruber?
No, I didn't know
He would have been really good. I mean, like, I can't imagine as anyone other than Alan Rickman, Severus Snape.
Alan Rickman.
Severus Snape. Page 394.
Well, you know what's funny is it's funny you say that because so one of the things I love about this movie, I love the director of this movie, John McTiernan. John McTiernan is a fantastic action movie director
who didn't want to make this movie and said no 3 times.
Did he really?
Yes.
He did
not
I didn't know
want to do it.
Well, where I was going with that is like 2 years later, he directed The Hunt for Red October, which is part of that whole Tom Clancy thing.
Oh, yes. And the same teddy bear. Did you know that?
No.
It's the same exact teddy bear that Bruce Willis is bringing is the one that Jack Ryan has in The Hunt for Red October because John McTiernan uses the same bear across his movies.
Man, you and your fun facts. I did
research on this. Okay. Because we were, guys, just so you know, we had this as one of our possible ideas to do last year. So I have year-old research that I'm utilizing.
Well, what I'm realizing, too, is because the whole, and I'm not trying to go off on a tangent on the whole Jack Ryan series, but yeah, so the first Jack Ryan movie was The Hunt for Red October, which playing Jack Ryan is Alec Baldwin. And the reason I made that connection, by the way, too, is because you mentioned Sam Neill, who he didn't have in Die Hard, but 2 years later when they did Hunt for Red October, he hired Sam Neill for that role, which is like Sean Connery's XO on the submarine. So apparently he liked Sam Neill, So that's.
I mean, who doesn't? Well, he really John McTiernan, oddly enough, because he is such an incredible action movie director, is a huge Shakespeare fan. I don't know if you know this. Loves plays and loves Shakespeare. Yeah. That is how he found Alan Rickman, because he loves theater. Is Alan Rickman was in a production of, I forget what it was, but and McTiernan saw him and like fell in love with him and was like, oh, this is who I'm going to have now. Yeah. But the original script for this play and the book, it takes the course over 3 days. But because McTiernan loves Midsummer's Night's Dream so much, he wanted it to be over the course of one night.
Yeah.
Much like Shakespeare, because he thought it would have like, more of a dramatic effect. And he also thought by adding, he cut a bunch of stuff because originally they were terrorists. They were German terrorists. They weren't just like bad guys, not villains. Yeah. And he didn't think that terrorism was fun enough for a date night movie. And he's like, there's nothing fun about terrorism. And I want this to be a fun action movie.
Yeah.
So he changed them from terrorists to just villains, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, wow. They're just robbers. They're just robbers. Essentially, yeah, they're in it for the money. Well, really interesting too. And I didn't know this part, but so John McTiernan, very interesting director. I love this guy, and let's throw this out there. So he wrote a movie years ago, in the 80s, called Nomads, which starred Pierce Brosnan, which, funny enough, because Pierce would go on to do other action movies in the future, but clearly, I don't know if maybe you ever notice that like directors hang on to certain actors they work with and they'll like work with them again and again?
Oh, God, yeah. I feel like we've talked about it so much on this podcast, too. It's just like, you notice when a director loves to work with someone because then that person somehow, some way shows up in every production they do.
Right. Like Tim Burton and Johnny Depp.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
It's like almost every movie. So yeah, he had done, so John McTiernan had done, I think a short film called The Watcher. And I think it's that one that got picked up on. But long story short is Arnold Schwarzenegger saw the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the driving force behind Predator. And he was the one who got McTiernan hired to do Predator because he was so impressed with what he had done with that short film rather. And so out of that, you have John McTiernan's career is he does these like, personal like little short films, and then Nomads, which is starring Pierce Brosnan, which is like a horror movie. Then he does Predator in 1987, and then he follows that up immediately by doing Die Hard. And then after Die Hard, he does The Hunt for Red October. So he is like on a roll, which, by the way, to be clear, that role briefly stops when he does Medicine Man with Sean Connery. So this is what I'm saying. Like he hooked on to Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October. And it's like, oh, man, I like this guy. And then they do Medicine Man together, which almost grinds John McTiernan's career to a halt because it's such a poorly received movie. And then he comes back with, and I love this, he does Last Action Hero, which is such an underrated movie. We have to do that movie at some point. Then arguably my favorite Die Hard outside the original Die Hard, which is Die Hard with a Vengeance, which I love that movie. And as a New Yorker, I love seeing McClaine he's
Did you notice in that one, the truck that they have blow up is the same truck as from the first one, but instead of it saying the Pacific Courier, it says the Atlantic Courier because it's a different coast.
Damn it. I didn't know. And that was the bear. Did the bear show up in there too?
Oh, I don't remember. We haven't gotten that far. Can I just say to everyone, in the last week, we haven't been able, obviously, guys, I haven't been able to go very many places, but my fiance watched Die Hard for the first time and Scrooged for the first time.
Oh, I love Scrooge.
So we've started the Die Hard progression, so now we have to keep going for him.
Wait, he's never seen any Die Hards?
No. He fucking loved it, I'll tell you that, but he has not seen them.
Die Hard 2, or Die Harder, depending on, which copy you have, is interesting. It's what's really interesting about the Die Hard series in general, which I don't know if a lot of people know, is that almost every one of the movies were supposed to be standalone scripts until, or at least in the first trilogy, right? So Die Hard, Die Harder, and Die Hard with a Vengeance. Die Hard with a Vengeance was a movie called Simon Says, and I forget about Die Harder. I forget what that was, but they weren't. They were like they sort of plugged in like, oh, let's make this part of the Die Hard franchise after the fact, and that's why they're like so wildly all over the place, and then like almost like shoehorning in, you know, Holly McClaine in there for reasons.
They can say that they didn't mean them, but like the list of Easter eggs when I was doing my homework for the first go round, the list of Easter eggs that they purposely put into each movie to call back to the previous movies.
Yeah.
It's like you knew that they were going to be, they wanted a connection between them. Maybe not blatantly, because maybe he just didn't want to pull from the previous movie's successes and wanted them to be standalone films, but.
Yeah. Well, John McTiernan had nothing to do with Die Hard 2. Like, nothing to do with it. And then he came back for Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is also where it has that, like, you know, the thing I love about, and this is me just going off on a tangent about Die Hard / John McTiernan, but it connects back to Die Hard is I've said it so many times on this podcast, I love world building. And with Die Hard with a Vengeance especially, like, I don't get to talk about this enough. It's my favorite thing about it. And I know I'm jumping ahead to a different Die Hard movie, but we'll connect it back.
'Tis the season.
Is there's all the other like supporting like cops that he works with, that McClaine works with, right? The captain, the sergeant, all the other like detectives he works with, and they're almost like fully fleshed out characters. Like you just enter this world and they don't spoon feed you. They're just like New Yorkers.
Reginald Bell Johnson, baby.
But that's the thing. It's like they're just there, and it's like, oh, okay, I've just been thrown in to this group of people and like fly on the wall, and like they have like their inside jokes, like they're comfortable, they're not overacting. Like I feel like John McTiernan does latch on to people that don't overact, which is a
Paul
really
Gleason in the original Die Hard, and he's the deputy police chief.
Yeah,
like we don't know his backstory.
Yeah,
but we know what type of cop he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Just by the way that he acts as that cop, and it's not like you said. It's not like ridiculous. It's not like, hey, it's me, deputy police chief. Just so you know, like he's not telling you his backstory. You can just tell by the character the type of cop he is, and like you said, you're not spoon fed it. You're able to just have that moment.
Yeah,
I love it. One thing I do love about the Die Hard movies, especially the first three, is McTiernan really focuses on like his obsession with history. Yeah. So like what's happening in the original Die Hard is that time in the 80s, it was very a lot of Japanese companies were taking over American companies. Mm-hmm. So he wanted it to be like reminiscent of what was happening. And one of my favorite fun facts that I don't know if you'll appreciate this, but Frank Lloyd Wright had this place called Falling Water.
Yeah.
And it was like a very well-known architectural, Frank Lloyd Wright, big deal. The inside of the atrium is supposed to be falling water that the Japanese bought, disassembled, put back together inside the atrium in this building as like a trophy to show like we're taking over every aspect of your country. And there's even that line in the, like the Nakatomi Corporation, but there's that line in the movie where he says the Japanese are very like, I forget exactly what it is, but the Japanese are, easygoing. We, look what happened with Pearl Harbor and we got over it kind of thing, like whatever the line is.
Yeah.
And then later on in the movie, the password that they have to the safe is the name of one of the bomber ships in World War II that tried to attack.
Yeah.
Like they keep all of these themes going, and he does it in every single of the first, first, third, and I think there's another one where they call back to history. But for a stupid action movie, there's a lot of historical callbacks.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is even like the soundtrack to the movie, right? It's just it's that what Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, it's Ode to Joy, that just is soundtracked soundtracked
it
throughout the entire movie. And it's so simple and classical. And I think it like lends to, because it's almost like Hans Gruber's theme a little bit, where it's played slowly. I don't want to try to do it here, but it's like, dun, dun, like they do it slowly around Hans Gruber. And then when it's joyful because McClaine is triumphing, it does like the faster, like actual joyous version of it.
And also, how could people say this isn't a Christmas movie? Just that alone.
Yeah. What's crazy about it too is, to your point, right? Like there's a lot of thought. Comparing it to, especially to some of the later movies, which I was already crapping on, if you can't tell, like the later Die Hard films, like Die Hard, Live Free or Die Hard, or A Good Day to Die Hard, where it just goes over the top and it's zany, generic action flick. And
I still love that though.
That. All right. Well, we diverge, but I mean, there's things like, to your point, like Alan Rickman very much putting the dynamics and thought into who his character is of Hans Gruber. And I'm stealing this directly from Wikipedia, but like there was a point where he's like supposed to like throw Holly McClaine to the floor. And he's like, I don't think that Gruber would do that because he's a little bit more of a civilized like villain, not just like a, like aggressive brute force villain, which the other guy is the big blonde dude who.
Well, he also had Alan Rickman is the reason that Hans Gruber's wearing a suit and not dressed like the other guys, because it was Alan Rickman's idea to have that moment where he and John McClane are there. And if he wasn't wearing a suit, John McClane wouldn't think that he's just another person from the party. If he was dressed like everyone else.
Yeah.
So he created that whole thing, which is hilarious because McTiernan said how bad Rickman's American accent was. So he's
that's
like,
good.
We had to keep reshooting that scene because he was not believable. And he's like, even the way his mouth moves, it's like so unnatural. And I was like, I kind of like it.
But I love it, by the way. Anyway, I mean, I do love how unnatural he is in doing that, but
me too.
I digress. But that's the thing too. Like I was saying about like the way characters in John McTiernan movies is like, think about all the other bad guys on the team, like Theo, the tech guy, and like, he's
the worst character to me. I just want you to know, like, what a heartless, sick motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like just so excited and happy to be committing murder. He's just like, so loves it. Like, we're going to kill everyone. This sounds incredible. Let's do it.
He's in it for the money. Which
I know,
also,
but to me, he's the worst.
I never understood it though. Now that I'm thinking about it, but he is he the only American bad guy on that team?
No, isn't the one other a security guard that they put at the front American or has a really good American accent because he like talks like they're coming in.
He's not American because there's something he says about like American football. Like he's like trying to like,
you're right.
He's trying to pretend
that he's watching it. Yeah.
He mentions like and it's little things like that where he's like talking, like for instance, he's talking about football and he says like they're in like the third inning, like it's something like that where it's like, oh, this guy is pretending to know about like American culture, but like just slightly getting it wrong. And that's I love that stuff. But like it's just like all those little side characters, the villains, the little SWAT team, everyone who has like a speaking role in this movie, no matter how small, they are fully fleshed out characters. Like you're not spoon fed, oh, this is the bad guy. Like they're just absolute. They just exist. They're little NPCs in this world.
Well, how about the Jeffrey Dahmer looking motherfucker? Why is Jeffrey Dahmer following us, Tom? He cooked our dinner last week.
Isn't that Carl's brother?
Yeah. And I'm like, why? He looks like he's spitting image, copy paste Jeffrey Dahmer. Did they not see that going with that hair and those glasses?
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Not just like, oh, another German guy. He legitimately looks like Jeffrey Dahmer.
It's 80s style, right? We are
Yes.
Directly sitting on 1988. So, I mean, Holly Gennaro's head, her hair. What am I saying? Her head. Holly Gennaro's hair is boof, that's the sound her hair makes.
I love Bonnie Bedelia, by the way. She plays the mom in Parenthood, and she's just, I love her.
That's the same woman?
Yeah. And did you know that Bruce Willis suggested her for that role?
Really?
Yeah.
How did he know her?
I don't know. Maybe they fucked. I have no idea.
Well, I didn't realize he was also dating Demi Moore at the time, and which something I didn't realize too is like this was hard for him to film because he's basically alone the whole movie. Like he's in scenes by himself almost the entire movie.
And that's why there's so many improvised lines. Yeah. He kind of just let him go with it. But like even the scene where he's in the air duct.
Yeah.
And he does his little come to the coast, have a couple laughs. He was doing stuff like that, just like throwaway lines. And the yippee-ki-yay motherfucker was a throwaway line that he just did.
Yeah.
And they kept it in that movie, and then every other damn movie it makes an appearance. But
gotta beat that dead horse into the ground.
Have you seen the fake feet?
The fake feet. Oh, so, yes.
Yeah, because he's supposed to have, be barefoot through this whole movie. And the scene with the glass where he's got to like run across the glass in the office, they gave him fake rubber feet. And if you pay attention to it, they're enormous. Yeah. They're huge. They're so big.
Yeah. Big rubber feet. I love that too, is like something as simple as how do you put a character in the situation, right? Like the whole thing is he's barefoot because he was on a plane and he doesn't fly. And the guy sitting next to him is like, when you get where you got to go, just take your shoes off, take your socks off, and just scrunch your, toes into balls on the carpet and you'll feel better. Which I've tried too, by the way. I've been like, is this an actual thing? It's not
I do
a
it
thing.
on the plane though. I've always done it on the plane.
With your toes
on the plane, out? Yeah, I take my feet not all the way out of the sneakers because we all know how I feel about bare feet on planes, people.
Oh yeah, but, we've had this discussion off the air, but it's funny.
We had it on the air when I talked about Iceland and those creepy curl toes that came towards me. But no, I've done it on the plane because I'm always afraid of the people that get up to go to the bathroom and their legs are completely asleep because they're not moving around and they fall over. We all know that would be me. Yeah.
Well, the reason I was mentioning it, by the way, is because I just went on I had a sprint of 3 flights, not 3 flights, 3 different round trip flights over the course of a couple weeks. So I've been on 6 planes in the past 3 weeks. And out of that, yes, I take my feet. To be clear, right? I think this is protocol. Is I'm sitting with my feet under the seat in front of me, and I pop. I wear unlaced Skechers, slip in, slip on shoes because I'm getting old now, and that's just protocol. And I take them out. They're wearing socks, fresh socks. Yes. And I will rest my feet outside on my shoes. My shoes. Yes.
I do the same thing.
If I'm going to move anywhere else, if I have to stand up, if I have to, walk anywhere, I'm putting the shoes back on. In fact, when it was time to land, it's even part of the landing and takeoff procedure is it's got to be tray tables up, seat upright position, bag under your seat, and shoes on. Right. That's part of the protocol that I've made up in my head because, and to the point that last time I flew, I was putting on my shoes 45 minutes to landing. And the guy next to me is like, oh, do you have to get up? It's no, just put my shoes on. Just, protocol.
Also, I have to do the check. As I'm landing, I'm both earbuds together.
Yeah.
My phone, charger, everything's together. I do want to mention though, and this is kind of off topic, but just on the topic because you exist. Since we have recorded, we have passed Tom's birthday. Yeah. So happy birthday to Tom.
Thank you.
We went out for a super soft birthday party.
Yeah.
Where Jeffrey Dahmer cooked our dinner and it was exceptional.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned it before, but I was a little high, and
you think
because I always, but I was a little high and I'm just staring into my seat at this restaurant.
Incredible.
Like really amazing steakhouse. British steakhouse in New York. I'm staring into the kitchen where it's like an open window into the kitchen, and I'm staring and I'm like, that looks like, and it wasn't even Dahmer that I connected it to. I was like, he looked like the guy who played like
Evan Peters,
Quicksilver.
like just like Evan Peters playing Jeffrey Dahmer.
And I'm like, and I think I nudged Kyle, who you heard on this podcast and works at Gotham West. I nudged him and I go, is that the guy who played Quicksilver? Like, and I said, look, it's the guy and I was like, and I said, I asked him because he's all knowing when it comes to this stuff. And I go, who's the guy that played Quicksilver? And he goes, Evan Peters. And I'm like, did you know Evan Peters was on The Bear, was originally cast to be on The Bear? And he was like, no. And I was like, yeah, there he is right there. I pointed at the kitchen. And the thing was, he was dressed like Carmy from The Bear.
White t-shirt, blue apron.
Which, to be clear,
it was
like,
incredible.
Because the thing is, it's like, it's one thing to like, oh, he was dressed like a chef in a kitchen. Like, no. It was the exact like costume.
It was Carmy cosplay.
Yes. But it was Evan Peters. And he even had the glasses from Dahmer. Did he? Wait, now I'm second guessing it. Did he?
No, he did have the glasses. And we had one of the most incredible servers I've ever had. Yeah. I'm like, no joke. And I'm obsessed with hospitality. He was fantastic. And when we told him that, he's like, oh my God, yes, we tell him all the time.
Yeah.
Like did not miss a beat. And like did not care that we were like, I was standing up pretending to take a picture of the table, but I was really trying to take the picture behind me to get the picture of him. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
We eventually did get the photo. Yeah. And this is no shade to this gentleman. Very handsome boy. He just happens to look like Evan Peters.
Yeah.
Cosplaying as Jeffrey Dahmer, cosplaying as Carmy.
And I think he was on the fry station that night. But he did an awesome job.
Kitchen killed it. Whatever he did was amazing. So
and side note to all this too, which is really funny because you mentioned it was you set this up as my super soft birthday. And
wait, I could not go as big or as soft as I wanted because I had unicorn balloons.
Yeah.
I had a pink sash for you to wear that said birthday girl.
I didn't notice any of this.
Well, it's a very nice place, so we did not utilize them.
But here's the thing. No. But there's a value to what you did because we got there and there was some confusion with our reservation. And they're like, oh, you guys have to be out by, it was like 8:30, which was like an hour and a half. And there was like, we had a full table of people and
7 people.
Yeah, we were like ready to get the night started. And it's like, oh, you can only be here for an hour and a half, which I know sounds, depending on how you eat dinner or something like that, or go out with people, might sound long or short. I don't know. But for us, it was short because it was like, no, we're like, this is a very hoity toity like steakhouse and we are going to go ham. And so my wife made the reservation. And then on top of that, the lovely waiter who came over was like, oh, I have to let you know of some things we don't have. And it was anything that had bone marrow.
Oh my God. Which is his favorite.
The whole reason I wanted to go to this place that I love.
It's literally the reason that his wife, Dale, who we've also heard in this podcast. First of all, we planned this as a surprise.
Yeah.
For the day I got sick.
Yeah.
So thank God I did not just show up and be like, I'm fine. Because I would have killed everybody at Gotham West. But so then we had to prolong it, which meant that Tom was in on the surprise.
Yeah.
But we literally chose this place so that Tom could have bone marrow.
Yes.
Everything.
It's delicious. This place is great. And then, but what's happened was then they were like mean to my wife. And this is going to sound, and anyone who might know me knows that this is real, but this is like when someone's like, and I didn't yell. I was just like, hey, this is not right. Like, you know, like someone talks to like customer service, like, yeah, bullshit. You were irate or everything. I was just like, hey, it didn't sit well with me that they were like kind of rude to my wife, or at least I felt like they were, because they were like, oh, you were told over the phone. She's like, no, I wasn't.
By the way, the kindest person on the goddamn planet. Like, so, if you could be mean to her, you should. You're basically kicking the cutest puppy in America. But yes.
Yeah. So then I was like, I gotta go solve this, because that's what I do. And so I went up and I was just like, hey, like, I just gotta be honest, like, not asking for anything, not looking for, like, just like, it rubbed me the wrong way. We come here all the time. Like, this wasn't, kind of felt uncool, you know, and I needed to get it off my chest that, like, you know, I just felt like that was not a great experience. And it was kind of shocking because this place is not like that. And then they sort of like doubled down a little bit with me. They're like, well, your wife was told. And I was like, no, she wasn't. And I was like, okay, that would agree to disagree. Whatever you want to do. And then I sat back down, and then you had the whole bag of the super soft birthday gear.
Yeah.
And so I put on my, you're going to call it happy birthday tiara.
Yes.
With like big happy birthday sign on my head.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that I wasn't like, don't you know who I am? How dare you be rude to my family? And then I was like, yeah, that wasn't cool. And then sat down and put on a happy birthday tiara.
And our server was like, no fucking way. You sit here as long as you want. I do not care.
And so what proceeded was the person who doubled down then came back to me while I'm wearing my tiara.
It was incredible.
And is like, hey, just want to let you know we took care of it. We moved some stuff around so you guys can stay as long as you want. And then
sitting next to a unicorn piñata on the table full of drugs.
Well, edibles.
Not hard drugs, just edibles.
And so I was like, okay. And I think I just taken one too. So I was like, what, like, oh, this, like, you know, a guppy fish just came to my shoulder. Like, what is happening? And then after that, then the manager just sent over whatever we ordered, we got double of. So we ordered
hilarious.
And it was confusing because we ordered oysters, which I love oysters.
Yes.
I mean, let me backtrack. I don't know anyone that loves oysters. I like oysters. They're good. And I like to have them when I can. But no one else around in my life, with the exception of your fiance and Kyle,
who is my fiance's brother.
Yes. And do you do oysters? Are you down with oysters? No.
Nope.
No. Okay.
Nope. Oysters and Crohn's disease, they're not besties.
Yeah. And so like, I was like, oh, finally people I can eat oysters with. And then we were like, oh, let's just get like dozen or whatever. So it's like, all right, we get like 2 or 3 each. Right. And then it was like, wait, why? There's more orders of oysters just landing on the table.
Orders of oysters.
I ate more oysters than I had in years. And I feel like oysters in general are always like a Russian roulette game. Like at some point, like you ever eat shishito peppers and it's like, oh, like shishito pepper. Yeah, that's right. Crohn's. So shishito peppers are just like these, like, you know, they're like little peppers. And they look like dehydrated or wet.
Oh, yeah, I've had blistered shishito peppers where sometimes they're sweet, but then one of them is a scalding death fire. Yeah.
Right. It's Russian roulette. And so I feel like with oysters, at some point, you eat enough oysters, you're going to get a bad oyster and you're going to get sick.
Oh, God.
And I mean, knock on wood, no one actually got sick. But when you're playing the long game of like, hey, 4 orders of like, what is that? 4 dozen oysters.
Yeah.
That's a lot of oysters. There's only 3 people eating. So
and
anyway,
they kept going. But it was a wonderful celebration of Thomas's birth.
Yeah.
And it was not a surprise.
No.
And
I was okay with that. I was good with that.
Okay.
And it was a good time. So
listen, we're not going to name the name of the steakhouse.
No.
They ever want to sponsor us, though.
I mean, we'll be back there.
We'll gladly be there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I rave about them normally, but like now, which is funny because like, obviously they made up for it, but at the same time. It's so funny
you say this before you even say it. In my head, when this was happening, I was like, damn it. Now we're not coming back here for a little bit.
Yeah, no, I'll go
assholes.
Back. But you know what it is? It's even if you have like a bad experience and they make up for it, it's still it's knocked down a couple pegs. And I am a true believer in, you know, taking a negative situation and flipping it on its head and making it like something better. Yeah. But I was like, oh, you know what it might have been? It was the lack of bone marrow. If there was still bone marrow, everything would have been great.
Understand.
So.
Our poor server too, because as soon as he said, I just want to tell you that we're out of a couple things.
My face.
And then he says, so we don't have bone marrow. It's like a movie. It felt like a scene in Waiting. The entire table was like, no! And Tom was like,
it's funny because he's listing off each individual thing they don't have. And it's like, we don't have the bone marrow topping. We have this, but we don't have the bone marrow. And I'm like, do you just not have bone? He's like, yes, it's the bone marrow we're out of. I'm like, you could have just said that, number one. And number two, my heart's broken now. Like, that's terrible.
Oh, gosh.
So, well, anyway, we're okay.
We made it, but
okay.
I did just want to celebrate your birthday because, you know, we like to shout each other's birthdays out on this. And since I decided the Black Plague was a good time and a good way to celebrate your birthday, I kind of missed that. But back to our boyfriend,
yes.
Bruce Willis.
Yes.
Did you? Okay. One of the favorite scenes of the movie for everybody, I think, is Hans Gruber falling the stories out of Nakatomi Tower, right?
I mean, I don't know if I call it favorite, but it's
like, the most famous. I mean, they even have the
famous.
Advent calendars. Have you seen the Advent calendar?
Yes. Yeah.
Where it's a Hans Gruber slowly going down until the days of Christmas.
Yes.
So Alan Rickman had to fall 20 feet into like those giant airbags for the scene. And behind that was actually a painting with like lights that flickered and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, the people, so a stuntman was holding him.
Yeah.
And the stuntman had the camera. And so they dropped together. And in order to get him scared, your favorite director there was like, drop him on 2.
Yeah.
Don't tell him, but drop him on 2. And so the stuntman pushed him off on the count of 2, not 3. So his face is like sheer terror. And Alan Rickman was like, that we could never have shot that again. I've never been so terrified.
Yeah. Man, let me just tell you, I think I've told my meeting Alan Rickman story on this podcast, right? I think I have.
Severus Snape.
Yeah. I mean, he was just like the I think number one, everyone that, I think everyone just knows him from not everyone. Everyone, I think the most fans that walk up to him are coming up to him because of Harry Potter. And I was not there for Harry Potter. I was there because...
hold your tongue, because my first obsession with him happened with Love Actually. My favorite Christmas movie.
Okay. Yeah. Which we should do, probably.
Yes, I'll cry.
Yeah. But with that's where the whole thing was like, he came up to like, I was at my old radio job, and he was in the building. I was like, hey, I'd really like to meet him. And I wasn't doing an interview with him. He was just there for other interviews. And this guy named Spencer, who I love, who has always been fantastic to me, he was like, let me see what I can do. He's, he basically explained to me like, he's kind of shy. He's a shy guy. He's not,
That makes me love him so much more.
And he's like, just hang around here. Let me see what happens. It may or may not happen. Just, he's like, didn't want to get my hopes up. And so he goes and gets him. He finished whatever interview he was in. And then he walks past with Alan Rickman past me, and he just shakes his head like, no, it's not going to happen. Sorry. And I was like, oh, that sucks. Whatever. And I just like hung around there to not look like I was just hanging around for that one thing.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like just making small talk with like the person at the front desk or whatever. And then there was this lull, like he was about to leave, but like he was waiting for something or like wasn't ready. And there was this lull. And then Spencer just like nods at me like, oh, this is it. This is the moment. And then he waves me over.
I feel nervous for you right now.
And he goes, Alan, I just want to introduce you to Tommy. He's one of our hosts here. And I walk over to him and I shake his hand. And he has this look of like, I don't know how to describe it. I have a photo with him too. I'm like, where he is very shy and very like, like modest. Like there's no confidence in his face. He is very much like, almost like the voice of the character of his from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where he's like the depressed, like that is the man I met. And I shook his hand, and the first thing I was like, wow, I'm really like big fan of all your work, like, and he was like, oh, thank you so much. And then Spencer was like, hey, do you mind if I get a picture of you two guys together? And then we got that picture. What a good
guy Spencer is.
Spencer's a great guy. Like I had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago too, just catching up with him. And I'm like, I told him some great stories. And actually I mentioned this story. He left that job, and I mentioned this story about like one of like the standout moments for me. And he said he got really emotional hearing it, which I felt bad. That wasn't my intention, but like the whole thing is like there's those moments, and I am not a kind of person. I'm not starstruck necessarily. Like I'm not that kind of person. I'm not like, I don't like, idolize celebrities, or actors or actresses. I'm just like, hey, wow, I appreciate this person's work. Like I love like their body of work and when I'm walking up to him, I'm not like, oh, it's Severus Snape. Oh, I love that movie.
You just fucking said Severus.
Well, whatever. I don't know. I've never seen the movie. What is that? His character's name? I don't know.
Tucker, bite him.
But
Tucker, by the way, guys, is Tom's dog, not like a human in the
office.
office.
It's not my dog technically, but that's another.
He lives in your house.
He lives in my house. He's a roommate. But anyway, long story short is I met him, and he was very subdued and I would imagine too, because I haven't seen a lot of like that I think about, like there aren't a lot of like people getting photos with him or like meeting him and things. Like I feel very honored to have had that like small brief moment with him. Because I think that's just who he is. He wasn't like,
oh, absolutely. Again, I am the nerd.
Yeah.
But the stories everyone from the cast of the Harry Potter movies had for him were just beautiful. What he did for those kids and like help them. Because all these kids, they've never really were big actors before this, and they were young. Yeah. And like there's a scene where Rupert Grint, who plays Ron Weasley, was drawing, like they're supposed to be studying, like they're all in a big hall, and Rupert Grint is drawing cartoons of everyone, and he was drawing one of Alan Rickman with like a giant nose, and Alan Rickman's supposed to be Severus, who's like the mean teacher.
Yeah. And
he smacks them on the back of their heads and tells them to like go back to work. Yeah. And when he does that, like in the movie, you can see both Rupert Grint and Daniel Radcliffe are like laughing because he was laughing when he did it. And he kept the pictures, all the cartoons that Rupert Grint drew of him, like making fun of Alan Rickman. Yeah. And it's like, said they were like his favorite things in the world. And they said he is probably the biggest reason that the kids learn so much was because he was such a good tutor to them as like acting, but also let them be kids because they were fucking kids, you know, like they might be characters, but they're still kids, and didn't get pissed in the scenes when they would like have giggle fits and all that kind of stuff. He just like did it with them, which I love that.
Yeah. He was a sweet man. And that's the thing too, is like you mentioned that he came from like
theater.
And I don't think he ever lost those roots. Like I think that he hung on to those for his career.
That's just a Alan Rickman love fest.
I know. Well, what did you think? I don't want to jump ahead. You've seen Die Hard with a Vengeance, right?
Yes, I have. And not as many times as I've seen Die Hard, though. Like I've seen Die Hard so many times that like I didn't need to rewatch the movie to do this episode.
Yeah.
That one I would have to rewatch to do an episode on because I don't remember a lot of it. Also, I will say that what happens over the years, they kind of muddy together. Yeah.
Well, my bigger question, the reason I ask is because it's the one movie they connect the bad guy who's Simon. They connect Jeremy Irons' character back to Hans, saying that they were brothers.
That's
and I wasn't sure if you actually were like, oh, I like that, or
no, I do like that. You know me, I like continuity in movies. I like when things like come together and that kind of stuff. But back to your point, I would say Die Hard with a Vengeance and Die Hard are my two favorite Die Hards.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. The thing that bothers me, and I'll throw this out there too, just to say it, because I don't know if we're ever going to actually do a Die Hard with a Vengeance episode, but I will say the thing that bugs me the most is that I feel like Die Hard with a Vengeance is a great movie up until it needs to wrap up, and then the ending is just trash all over the place. Yeah.
There's got to be a reason for that. Maybe we can look into that before we do another.
There was an alternate ending. Like there was an alternate ending. Like in the alternate ending, for those that don't remember, including you,
me,
they, Simon and all the bad guys get away, right? They steal the money, they get away, and it's like, we missed them. And then him and Zeus get blown up on that giant boat, and then they're rescued, whatever, and like they're licking their wounds. And then Zeus is like, well, did you ever call Holly, whatever? And he's like, no, I hung up on her, I left her on the call or whatever. And he's like, well, you should call her. And so he goes to a payphone and starts calling Holly, and then notices that in the scene before, when Simon is about to blow up the boat, McClane's like, hey, do you have any aspirin? And he tosses him the bottle and says, keep the bottle. And the bottle of aspirin has a truck stop back in Quebec, like written on the bottle, like it's like, branded or whatever. And which leads McClaine to understand like, oh, that's where they're going. They're going to Canada. And so the next scene, which also makes no sense. There's certain things that my weird, like useless knowledge brain knows about that really bothers me. in movies. And I'll give you another example because something came up recently. Have you ever heard of a movie called Margin Call?
No.
It's like one of those movies about like the financial crisis or whatever. Ironically enough, connecting the dots to what we're talking about today, stars Jeremy Irons. Also stars Demi Moore, who was dating Bruce Willis during
Here we go.
But the entire movie, like, they're like, oh, we got to call in the big boss or whoever, like the owner of the firm or whatever. And then he arrives on a helicopter in Manhattan, and they're like, oh, like they they're on the helipad on the roof, and like they're outside as the helicopter's landing on the roof. Helicopters can't land on roofs in New York City. I know this because back in the 60s, Pan Am had a brilliant idea of saying, hey, what if we shuttle all the business people from the Pan Am building in New York City, right above Grand Central, over to the airport? And they tried to do that. And then one of the helicopters tipped over and then sending shards of helicopter and things to the ground and killing lots of people. And then the city of New York is like, all right, you know what? How about this? No helicopters on top of buildings. Let's not do that here. So they have to land on helipads on the water. So if you ever visit New York or you're from New York, that's the whole reason there's no helipads on buildings. They're all like on the piers on the water, and then you have to go to there.
I've never realized that, but don't hospitals have helipads?
Not in New York City.
No? I never thought about that.
Yeah. Outside New York City,
wild.
yes, right? LA,
Yeah.
I mean, every other city. Maybe not every city, but anyway. So the whole point is, right? Then back to the movie, they're blown up, and they're first off, like where the boat was, it was in Long Island Sound. Somehow they're back and hanging out with the NYPD guys. So they're somewhere in New York City, and then boat blows up. McClane's like, oh, they're in Quebec, they're in Canada, and then hops because the medevac helicopter, to your point, was actually picking them up. They hop on the medevac helicopter and then fly to Quebec in a helicopter.
That would be so cold.
It's a long trip. The helicopter's not going to make, like, there's a reason why we don't like, oh, hey, how did you get from New York to Quebec? Oh, helicopter. No, that's not a thing. So anyway.
We can suspend belief for that.
To an extent. I mean, unless the Canadian border suddenly shrunk and is in Sullivan County, there's no way they're taking a helicopter from New York City to the Canadian border. Anyway, there's that. And on top of that, too, they just told the medevac pilot to just, hey, instead of going to the hospital, I know you have other things to do, but can you just fly us there? We're going to go kill a bad guy. Now, there was an alternate ending to this movie. That's the second ending. That was their makeup ending, because the other ending to the movie was he lets him go, and then there's, I don't know, what is it? McClaine catches up to this guy in some other country and then plays Russian roulette with him with a rocket launcher.
Why did they love Russian roulette in the 80s and 90s? They fucking loved it.
I don't know. This is in Hungary. So John McClaine,
of course,
flies to Hungary and wait, actually, I'm going to read this off of Wikipedia. He is fired from the NYPD after more than 20 years on the force, and the FBI has even taken away his pension.
Oh,
because they used him as the scapegoat for, like, they're like, oh, the robbery, you were in on the robbery the whole time. It's also mentioned that McClaine and his wife Holly have divorced. Nevertheless, he manages to track Simon using the batch number on the bottle of aspirins. I don't know. Explain that. And in this version, Simon has double-crossed most of his accomplices, gotten the loot to a safe hiding spot somewhere in Hungary, and has the gold turned into statuettes of the Empire State Building in order to smuggle them in and out of the country. And so McClaine is going to get revenge on him. So he takes a small Chinese rocket launcher, has the sights removed so you don't know which end is which, and then plays Russian roulette with him at the table. And then eventually, like, they press the button and the rocket fire is hitting Simon in the chest and killing him.
Beautiful.
And so out of that, in the mentioned in the commentary of the movie, the studio thought it was a more cruel and menacing side to McClaine, who was killing for revenge rather than in self-defense. So then we get the other scene where instead they fly a helicopter to Canada.
Now, wait, hold on. I just realized something. Personal favorite characters from Die Hard.
Yeah.
Argyle, the limo driver.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Devereaux White.
Devereaux White. Incredible.
Is that Jill White's brother by any chance?
Oh, gosh. Well, this was the other second favorite. Of course, we're going to have to talk about our boy, Reginald Vell Johnson.
I know. We didn't really talk about him much.
We need to talk about him because we know how much Tom loves him.
Yeah.
And respects him as a human. This was done in 88. Family Matters didn't start till 1990. Do we think that this showed them that he could be the cop, the donut Twinkie eating cop?
I don't know if there's a direct connection there. I believe there is. But again, as I love to remind everyone, let me just take it back for a moment. The entire plot to Family Matters was
oh my God,
just a working class family from the Chicago suburbs, led by Carl Winslow, who's keeping it together with his wife and kids. A spinoff from Perfect Strangers, for those that don't remember and who may not remember Perfect Strangers, with Balky and Cousin Larry, because here we go. Because Carl Winslow's wife, whose name I'll come up in a second, because he had 2 wives, by the way. That's a whole other story. She was the elevator operator in the building in which Balky and Larry worked in. So, Harriet Winslow, played by Jo Marie Payton, until the final season of the show.
Insane.
When they just swapped her out randomly. And you're not supposed to notice. It's just
Reginald Vell Johnson's only in the first 2 Die Hards. No, he's not in the third one.
He's not in the third one. No,
he's not in the third one. He's in the first 2.
And even in the second one, it's just like, which is okay. Okay,
a horrendous story they gave him. By the way,
it is, and also like, Die Hard 2 sucks. Let me just say this. I love Die Hard and all, but Die Hard 2 sucks so bad. Is it if it's on TBS and you want to hear Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon? Sure. Fine, keep it on. It's a ride. The bad guys are bonkers, weird. They're more 80s than anything else, even though it came out in 1990, I want to say.
Yeah.
But here, okay, John McClaine is a cop from what city?
NYPD, baby.
Okay, so he is a New York City police detective. He is in D.C. to meet his wife. For reasons, I actually forgot, and there might be a reason why he had to go to D.C. to meet her from her flight from L.A. I don't know. We'll figure it out. I can look into that later. But let me just throw this out there. A bad guy, he has a hunch because some guy was killed at the airport in the baggage claim area, and he grabs Prince off the guy, and he wants to run the Prince. Now, he is a New York City police detective.
This is all very illegal, by the way.
Yes.
Prince.
Who does he call to run the Prince for him? Does he call the station he works for?
No.
No, he calls his old friend from LA for no reason whatsoever. Why him? Because we needed a cameo, because it's a Die Hard film. Remember Die Hard? And so he calls Carl Winslow.
Sergeant Al Powell, folks.
Sorry. Sergeant Al Powell, and faxes him the Prince. Just so he can have a cameo in the movie. He is just over the phone in 2 scenes when he can.
That's all I need, baby.
Receive the Prince, and he's eating a Twinkie, of course, because remember Die Hard? Remember the Twinkies?
He said that people would throw Twinkies at his car for years when he was driving. He would drive around. People would throw Twinkies at him. He's like, I didn't mind it.
But anyway, another character from the movie that I want to throw out there, and it's not really a character, I'm being facetious, but the building itself. Do you know what the building is?
It's Fox's headquarters, and Fox had to pay themselves rent to film there.
Even better, though, this building showed up in another movie, one of my other favorite movies.
Oh, I don't remember what it was, but I did read that this morning. But yes, Please share with us.
I don't know the context of what these buildings mean or are, but so it is the Fox Plaza building, which is Nakatomi Plaza in the movie. It is 2121 Avenue of the Stars in Studio City.
And before you proceed and give us the big bomb, the very sophisticated computer system that the NYPD uses to call Nakatomi Tower is actually the real phone number at the time for Fox Plaza.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
That's my fun fact before you blow all of our minds. Okay, go.
Well, it's not, this isn't a mind blower. Now you give me too much credit. But,
I'm excited though.
So there's this other like little building outside in like, there's like the little like circle where people pull up in the cars or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's this other little building. And again, I don't know the context of this other little building on the Fox Plaza lot there. There's the giant tower, and then there's this little one-story building. The one-story building was the radio station from Airheads.
I love that movie. We all know how I love Brendan Fraser. So
and if you watch both movies, you see the other building in the shot just behind it, but they play it like the buildings are all standalone. It's kind of weird.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
I was actually just looking at this before we got down the building thing. Mm-hmm. This was not supposed to succeed. Like, they didn't even put Bruce Willis on a lot of the posters because they're like, nobody's going to see this movie. We never got our big A-list actor.
Oh, yeah.
So
he wasn't
viewed
no
as an A-list actor in this
yeah.
movie. Yeah. So this isn't going to succeed. They didn't put Bruce Willis's face on all the movie posters to begin with. Their budget was $25 to $35 million. Bruce Willis was paid $5 million, which everybody gave the studio so much shit for because they're like, he's a nobody. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And then it ended up grossing $141.5 million at the box office in July.
Yeah.
So
I hope he got points.
They got points. Maybe they were starting the Christmas in July trend.
Maybe. Is that where it came from?
I have no idea.
It was the Christmas in July.
I used to have to bartend when I worked at a club where we would have a Christmas in July party and we'd have to dress up in slutty Christmas outfits in the middle of July.
Oh.
Try shopping for that. Not
what
great.
What about actual Christmas? Do you still get to?
Yeah, we did that too. Yeah. Just got. I think one year we were Who's from Whoville. I was the dog from The Grinch. Not sure how I landed that role, but I got to be the dog while everyone else got to be hot little Who's from Whoville, and I got to be Max, the Grinch's dog.
I mean, I don't know if did you have to wear the noses? Because I feel like that's...
I painted it on, but I had to wear the one little antler.
Well, where I was kind of going with that is like, I'm like, I don't know if I'd call that... Like, I feel like the nose kind of makes it not... I mean, unless that's your thing. I don't know.
People are into weird shit, Tom. Don't yuck the yums.
I have to remember that. I guess I have to remember that.
So anyway, where would you put Die Hard as far as favorite Christmas movies go? Is it one you have to watch every year?
Is it one I have to watch every year? Yes, it is. And
I agree.
And it's one of those things where, like, because of what it is, I'll give you the tradition that we've kind of set up is like, it's throughout my families as I've grown families. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's because of the adult nature of it and it's a Christmas movie. It's like one of those perfect, like, all right, the kids are asleep either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day night to like turn around and just be like, yeah, all right, let's put Die Hard on now. The kids are asleep.
Yeah.
So
I was watching this when I was about 4 or 5 years old at my dad's house.
Yeah.
And also at my mom's house. My stepfather was the same way. Action movies all day.
Yeah.
But I stopped watching it, obviously, because I hadn't seen it since I've been with my fiance, who we've been together for almost 14 years now.
Yeah.
And I just realized, like, rewatching it, I'm like, this is what I took away with my rewatch this year. Besides the excitement that I'm watching it and the excitement that he's loving it as much as I do.
Yeah.
The speed in which that tank top that Bruce Willis is wearing goes from white to completely black.
Oh, yeah.
Covered in blood.
Yeah.
Very accelerated. Also, you can see the tank top in the Smithsonian Institute. It's hanging up.
Yeah.
So that's our Christmas gift to you all. But I would put this top 10, I would say. Christmas movies. No,
absolutely. And I think it's like one of those things where it's like, it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun Christmas movie because it's not so down the line. There's no Santa Claus. It's as as I think I heard Aviv from the InSync podcast here at Gotham West Studios mention, where every other Christmas movie is, oh no, Christmas isn't going to happen. And then we do something and it's like Christmas is saved. It's not that. It's not that movie. So it's a little different, but in a good way. And I'm okay with that.
Also, I just want to shout out the guy who works at Mrs. McClaine's office that basically was I think the genesis for the Succession character. The brother, because this guy does is a shit ton of blow and just wants to bang everyone in the office. And I was like, wow, this is like 1988 Succession. Yeah. I don't remember what his name is, but he's a hilarious character. Gets killed, but yeah.
Yeah. Guy, Bobby.
Yeah.
Is it Ellis?
Yeah, that's what it is. Ellis, yeah.
John Bobby. I just want to throw out
fucking turd. I hated him so much.
I love it so much. That beard. I just want to, as I'm looking at my Reginald Johnson stuff. So I want to close with this.
Okay.
This is a headline quote. Reginald Johnson says working with G.L. White was, quote, a challenge. He just talks about.
I did not wait to do the Family Matters episode. We have to get someone from Family Members as a guest on. We have to.
I don't think we're going to.
It cannot be Jaleel White because you and I are going to tear him to pieces. It cannot be him. It cannot.
I just love the juxtaposition of like, go watch like a first season episode, even a second season episode before they bring in this random, let's throw in this character, next door neighbor, goofy kid. And then cut to like, just like when Carl opens the door and comes home, like the audience claps to the, like, remember the audience from Married with Children, how they just sounded unhinged, like when something would happen. That audience on steroids, when G.L. White walks in as Stefan, guys, in like later seasons.
You know how on TikTok right now there's this trend going around about the Roman Empire, and these women are asking their husbands how often they think about the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire here, can we talk about, is the drama surrounding Family Matters. We will never be over it.
Just because, you know what it was? Like, all right.
And I rewatched it because of our episode, and I just want you to know that all I could think of is this poor fucking man is out on the Chicago streets putting his life on the line. He just wants to relax at home, and who is this little motherfucker that keeps coming into his house?
So, I have it even worse. I'm thinking about Reginald Johnson, who was like showing up to set for what was supposed to be he was supposed to be the Bill Cosby from the Cosby Show. He was just
the lead in Die Hard.
Right. The lead in Die Hard, second lead in Die Hard, and brought on to be the centerpiece to this,
this is incredible.
Like black family sitcom, ABC, Friday nights, spinoff from one of their biggest hits at the time. And they're chugging away and everything's going well, right? The show's doing okay. People like it. Funny, Laura Winslow, relatable, right? Nice family sitcom. And then, Heiny Ho. And then that guy's entire life became playing second fiddle to this 17-year-old kid who just wears suspenders and the audience just fawns over.
There's gotta be a psychological study on this because the way it can't just be us that feel this immense like betrayal for him. We cannot be alone.
The funny part is you realize like after that happened, they're like, oh, we don't need the sister on the show. They just started cutting characters out, right?
Listen, we got justice for Laura.
People lost their jobs because Steve Urkel existed.
We truly have to have someone from the show on. I would love it to be Reginald. I would love it. We have to get him. I think we'd be too starstruck. I don't think we'd be able to handle it. That would be our moments.
I will say, and this, I mean, now we're never going to get anyone, but I feel like, especially like reading up on him, Bill Johnson. It seems like he's very much married himself, which I guess is a healthy thing to do ish in the situation. Is like he walks around and like as if he was a real cop. It's like you just played a cop in a movie and a TV show. Like it's like he's very much married himself to his most famous roles, which were, to be clear, just these two things. Like, not that that's the only things he did.
That happens, Tom. The one lady that was on Grey's Anatomy, she just did an interview for something, and she plays one of the doctors on there, Teddy, and she was on a plane with her husband, and somebody was like, help, is there a doctor on board? And she started to stand up, and her husband, like, grabbed her and was like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, what? They asked for a doctor. He's like, yeah, you're not a doctor. Sit down. And she's like, I was so embarrassed, but it felt so second nature. This shit happens, man. It's your life. And he got Twinkies thrown at him. So he, you know what? You know how like they give little kids when they go to visit the police station or the fire station, their honorary deputy for the day? Maybe we can bring him to the LAPD and just get him an honorary badge for a day.
I think he has one already. I'm pretty sure he has one. Also,
I vote we just do a Reginald Vel Johnson episode. Honestly, at this point.
It would literally just be this. It would be Die Hard, Family Matters, and then that one scene he's in Ghostbusters.
I was gonna say he's in Ghostbusters.
Yeah,
he's in Ghostbusters.
Yeah. Ghostbusters. Like he doesn't even say it right, which is even funnier. I mean, it's very New York cop-esque kind of.
He's in Turner and Hooch too.
Yeah.
I don't know where, but
probably
and he's
plays
also
the cop.
Crocodile Dundee.
Probably plays the cop. Always
oh my God! Could you imagine?
Is that in his writer? He's like, I will do any movie.
Oh my God! He is. He's a detective in Turner and Hooch. How did I not know this? Oh, I love this so much.
Well,
okay. Anyway,
happy holidays. Yeah, go watch Die Hard.
We've missed you.
We're back. We'll
be back next week with more Christmas goodies.
Yeah, more Christmas before the Christmas is over.
Yeah. Sorry we missed you. All my fault.
All right. Well, see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Hans, Bobby.